Mike Patron.
Yes, sir. Man, I'm honored to be here, bro.
Dude,
Thank you, man.
I appreciate you doing this. This will be interesting. So
I've been looking forward to it.
Running around, tactical shooting, fighting people in Muay Thai, fighting people in Jiu-Jitsu, driving EMS in the backwoods of Honduras and Mexico and wherever else.
I dabble in a few things.
Yeah. Well, all of this after, a couple of tours in Iraq.
Yeah, I did 2 tours in Iraq.
Yeah, so this will be fun and interesting. So
yeah, let's go for it, man. Open book.
All right. Let's start with the much lighter stuff, Jiu-Jitsu.
Love it.
That's how we got connected.
Yeah. Shout
out to Greg Sirico and Odyssey. Greg was the first person that I did the podcast with.
I love that. I thought that was a great interview, man.
Dude, I appreciate it. He's Greg's an interesting guy. He's got a lot of weird perspectives on things. Weird being a good thing, coming from New York. And we were actually talking about this because I'm working with him on a little bit of stuff with a house that he has. But he was talking about it's very in vogue for a lot of New Yorkers to just talk shit about anyone that moves and be like, oh, well.
I lived in New York for a little while. I know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the more you know. When did you live in New York?
I lived in New York after when I first got discharged out of the Army. I was there for a year. It's 2010. I was there for a year in Brooklyn. Okay. And I love I love New York City.
Yeah.
Would I live there again? Nah.
Probably not.
No, but I still like the city though. I'll go for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Come back home. And that's cool. That is my limit for how much I love New York right now. And I still visit 2-3 times a year. Great. Love the city. To live there again, the day in and day out hustle and bustle of New York. I like Atlanta, man.
It's got a lot of I don't know. It definitely, the hustle and bustle is a good way to put it. There's a lot of anxiety, energy in the air when you're everyone's humming around on in their own world.
Yeah, and it's very you're in a mindset of go. I move here, and there's you lose a lot of that personality of meeting people and talking to people, and it's a one-way street in New York, and you're just I wake up, I get on the train, and then I'm on the train for an hour and a half, depending on what part of the what borough you're going to, and then I go to work for 10 hours, and then I do it all the way, and then I come back home, and then I do it again the next morning. And
Jesus.
Yeah, man.
Did you get into EMS right out of the Army?
Yeah, funny enough. So I actually got into EMS when I first got out of the Army. I actually worked for Grady for a year.
Okay.
And then I left, and then I traveled. I did other things. I taught English abroad. I backpacked. I explored the world in so many different ways, and then I got back into EMS right before COVID. So I've been, more so I've been in EMS for 5 or 6 years.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Where all did you backpack to?
Everywhere. I'm at 50 something countries right now. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Mostly Southeast Asia, a lot of South America. Yeah, all over, man.
Is that where you got into Muay Thai when you went to Southeast Asia?
I got into Muay, yeah, well, of course, Thailand.
Yeah.
And Thailand's a really special place to me. Muay Thai is actually how I got into martial arts, period.
Okay.
And how I ended up in Jiu-Jitsu. So I actually got into Jiu-Jitsu in the military. We actually took hand-to-hand combat classes.
Okay.
It was the basics. It was just learning the very basics of Jiu-Jitsu. We weren't doing omoplatas and all kinds of stuff in the military.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and omoplata someone in a.
Yeah. It was more. It was hand-to-hand combat with a core basis of Jiu-Jitsu, right? But the basics. So that was my first introduction into Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts. And then, after the military, I boxed for a little while. I got into Muay Thai on my first trip to Thailand. I spent 2 months training out there. I love Muay Thai. Muay Thai. I really like Muay Thai because it has a very strong spiritual aspect to it. Mm-hmm. And being a spiritual person, I love being able to bridge that gap between spirituality and martial arts. And Muay Thai does it. Muay Thai is for sure at my heart. But boxing, Muay Thai, I'm a competitor at heart, and the longevity of competing in boxing and Muay Thai and stuff, you're not going to be doing it forever, man, or at least in your 50s and stuff like that. And so about a couple years ago, I switched my focus from boxing to jiu-jitsu, and I love it, man. I love the longevity in jiu-jitsu. I love being able to see guys who are in their 50s still competing. And as a competitor, as an athlete, I love competing and being able to have that strong focus in martial arts as a core part of my life. Yeah, it means a lot. So
I was going to say, you've gotten into competing in jiu-jitsu a ton. Like you were in LA, got second in LA.
I went straight for it, man. Like I said, like I'm an athlete and I need that competition to like keep me motivated and keep me focused. So like, you know, shout out to Odyssey, man. Like they tuned me up real fast and I was ready to go like within my first year of training at Odyssey. And once I started competing, like I was like, yeah, I'm in this for sure. And I love competing because I think competing, it's not just about like winning or losing, because even if you lose, like you're still winning as a competitor just by being able to step onto that mat or challenge yourself. And if it's not challenging you, it's not changing you type of mindset. And I really appreciate that part of growing as a person. I mean, competition and being an athlete as a competitor, you're constantly growing when you challenge yourself to compete at different levels.
Yeah. What did you compete in Muay Thai? Have you competed in Muay
Thai? I haven't actually taken a Muay Thai fight.
Okay.
I fought in boxing.
Okay.
I have a couple matches under my belt in boxing, but Muay Thai is a different level, bro.
Yeah.
Muay Thai is like the science of 8 limbs. There's elbows, there's kicking, there's knees, there's clinching. Like it's a whole nother beast, man, and it's brutal. And I love it, but I can't say I've competed in Muay Thai yet. However, it could be coming soon, so we'll see, man.
The videos I've seen of people that are fighting in Muay Thai, it's wild.
It's
just sitting there
it's
watching.
One of the most brutal sports there is, man. Honestly, I even think I want to say it can be even more brutal than MMA. And I think MMA is a brutal sport, but it's brutal on the surface level.
Okay.
Right? Muay Thai is like, man, it's hardcore, man.
You see some of the like, just the amount of damage those guys take in terms of getting kicked in the leg, in terms of eating the elbows, the body. I mean,
everything. I mean,
and they get some of their faces after those fights. I mean, it looks like someone hit them with a hammer.
Yeah. It's brutal, man. Muay Thai is brutal. And you're talking about people, who, especially at the culture of Thai, like these are people who grew up the same way our Western society grows up playing like American football or baseball, right? They grew up Muay Thai. Like this is the country's sport, and this is just culture for them, is to grow up competing in Muay Thai.
They start fighting over there at like 6,
so
right?
Young, super young.
That can't be good for your brain.
There's a dark underworld to it. I think. I mean, you know, there's a dark history to it for sure. I think just as a whole, like it's culturally part of Thai culture, just Muay Thai just being the national sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I see pros and cons to it. There's pros like, you know, it's a sport, they're being athletic, they're being competitors, they're growing. I love the sport. I think it's great. But there can be a dark undertone to it. I think there's a lot of you know, they pay off people. Like there's a lot of kids that are being basically like they're slaves to the sport. There's a dark underworld to most things we do in life, but
fair.
I mean, as a whole, man, Thai culture is just such a beautiful culture, and Muay Thai is just one aspect of that.
Yeah, I'd love to get over there. I think it'd be awesome. I mean, Steve from Odyssey right now is over there. Like he's had like a couple fights.
Yeah,
I think.
I heard.
That's like a crazy thing. In your experience with like having taken a couple of boxing fights and then also doing a number of jiu-jitsu tournaments, is there a different psyche going into a boxing fight versus a jiu-jitsu tournament?
I'm glad you asked this question because I've been thinking about that a lot lately, especially competing more often in jiu-jitsu. Look, whether you're boxing, whether you're doing MMA, whether you're doing jiu-jitsu, pre-fight nerves are there, and your headspace has to be right? I can't say. I think training for like a fight where someone is like trying to knock you out, there's a different level of anticipation and a different headspace you have to be in versus a jiu-jitsu match. I've never walked onto the mat feeling like, okay, this guy's gonna knock me out, and that could be, you know, the end of my career, right?
Yeah,
I've felt like that walking into a boxing match, but the headspace of being a fighter is there. How you handle your pre-fight nerves and how you handle your post-fight nerves, like that's all part of the growth as a competitor. So is the headspace a little different? Yeah, it's different, but it still falls under the same umbrella of like how you talk to yourself and how you mentally prepare, for sure. I mean, I still prepare for a jiu-jitsu tournament the way I would if I was going into a boxing match, for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say, I can imagine to be a little bit different because, I mean, yeah, in jiu-jitsu, like there's a lot of pretty grave bodily harm you can come to. I mean, Amon put like, that dude Amon fucked up last weekend with that toe hold. I mean, it was like he stood up and his leg buckled.
The injuries there,
like you can get hurt, but I don't know. There's something more. I don't know if it's more primal or what it is, where it's like you're sitting there and you know that this person's trying to like separate you from your consciousness. Like that's got to be, at least to me, seems just a little bit more unnerving.
I mean, like the anticipation and the way you prepare for like a boxing match to a jiu-jitsu match, it's different, but I still treat it the same as you know what I mean? Like as a martial artist, like I'm going into a type of battle. This is the battle I'm going into. And how do I grow? How do I talk to myself? The headspace that you're in tells, it says a lot about you as a competitor and as a person. And, going into that, I treat it all the same. The risk to reward can be a little different in boxing to jiu-jitsu, but I mean, it's all there. I mean, it's a martial art that you have to respect, period.
That makes sense. When you went about finding a jiu-jitsu school, did you start at Odyssey or did you start at another academy?
I dabbled in a couple other academies. I knew right away that this was just a stepping stone into like really understanding and learning and studying the art. But I can tell you that my very first class at Odyssey, I knew that was it. I knew like Odyssey was my home now.
Yeah.
So, like I said, like my introduction into jiu-jitsu was through the military with the basics of hand-to-hand combat. But actually studying at an academy, I knew I was home right away at Odyssey.
Okay. So you got into the military when you were 18?
18, man. Yeah. I was a kid.
That's young. So you signed up, what, you're 36?
I'm 38 now.
38?
20 years ago.
Old ass man.
2004, bro.
So like right in the middle of the surge.
Yeah. It was prime time. Yeah.
So
I mean, even going through basic training, like day one, they told, like, I'll never forget it. They like had us all lined up and they were like, almost every single one of you will be going to war. And I can guarantee you that not everyone here will be coming home, like, period. Like that was like my introduction.
Welcome to basic training.
Yeah. Welcome to basic training.
So you signed up
but I still was like, okay. Like, I'm a kid. I'm 18 years old.
You're 18. You're like, fuck it. Let's go to war.
I was like, whatever. All right. I'm here. I mean, I joined because, I needed a change in my life. I needed a job. Like, I wanted to just do something honorably. Like, the military was it. My father was in the military as well. So, I knew I came from a military home, a military family, and my grandfather was in Korea. My father was in the military. After I joined, my sister joined.
Holy shit.
I have a full military family background. But even still, like, I joined because, I needed a job, man. I was 18 years old. I knew at that time I wasn't ready for college, so I was just like, all right, what am I doing with my life? I was working at Taco Bell, bro. I was 18 working at Taco Bell. I was like, all right, well, this ain't it.
What's the timeline between working at Taco Bell and touching down in Iraq? You went to Iraq first, right?
Yeah. So actually, like a month after basic training, I got deployed. I had like a couple months of like pre-deployment where they stationed us out in Savannah and Fort Stewart. Did like 2 weeks in Kuwait, and then I was honestly from the day I joined, it was a little bit less than a year before I was boots on ground in Iraq.
Holy shit!
And I was 18, and it's interesting that you say like that I joined so young. Like I remember, so I went to Iraq. I did a year, almost a year and a half, deployed. I was wounded twice. I saw combat. I came home. And I was still not old enough to go to the bar and drink.
And you had been, when you say you got wounded, you got like fucked up wounded, not like rolled your ankle wounded.
Rolled your ankle. No, so I was blown up twice. Yeah, I caught 2 IEDs, improvised explosive device. Actually, the first one was a vehicle loaded with explosives, and I was sitting on the top of the Humvee, and I looked over, and the whole thing just blew up. Got burned on the back of my neck. Whole thing caught on fire. A whole Humvee caught on fire. Medic had to pull me out of this burning Humvee. Gunfight broke out. Helicopters flying overhead. It was wild. I'll never forget that.
You're
day.
smiling, talking like you're blown out of a
It's
fucking
just a
Humvee.
core memory of just like, yo, this was part of my life. That was just the first time. Second time, IED exploded on the Humvee. I was driving, caught a piece of shrapnel right through my face. I had 14 stitches on the inside of my lip. My face was just waterfall bleeding. They called in a medic chopper and flew me to Baghdad Hospital. It's wild, man.
What the fuck?
And then I came home and I still wasn't old enough to go to the bar and have a beer.
I was about to say, you're sitting there and you're like, yo, so I've gotten blown up in a Humvee twice. How long, like total time, how long were you in Iraq for?
My first deployment was a full straight year.
Okay.
And then my second deployment was like 8 months.
Okay.
So almost 2 years.
So you've done almost 2 years fighting literally on the front line. And then you get home and they're like, yeah, no, you go.
Yeah,
I went home, you can't drink here.
Yeah, well, after the first deployment, I was only 20. By the time I joined, went to combat, came home, I was still only 20. And like, people in my unit, and they're like, yeah, we're going to the bar, we're celebrating, we're home. And I'm like, I can't even get in.
Dude, that is insane to me that you can.
Yeah, I know, man.
That's
I know.
more backwards.
Age old discussion, but it is what it is, man. It was cool. It was a big part of my life, and it's one of those things where it's like I'm really glad that I did it, and I'm grateful for the experiences I have. I'm also very grateful that it's over.
I was gonna say, was it so after the second time it happens, you're like, okay, I've got to get the fuck out of here before this gets worse?
No,
or what was
to be honest, man, like when you're in it, you're not really thinking about it like that. It's a different concept of like being at home, comfortable, and at your house in this.
Mm-hmm.
And then being on the front line and you're just in uniform in Humvees every day. Like the mindset is so different and you're not thinking about it. And honestly, it's a good thing you don't think about it like that, because you need to stay focused. You need to stay on task and distracting yourself, like what's going on at home or how I need to get out of here. I don't want to be here. You're only putting yourself and everybody else at risk.
Did you do 4 years and then 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was actually on a 6-year contract, and I got out a little early because I got wounded. They let me go early. I was like, yeah, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, that's
cool, man.
Where do you go after you get out of the military? I mean, you go from probably having one of the more, I mean, I don't want to sit there and be like, that's traumatic on some level. I mean, you say it's a core memory, but like that's got to be I
mean, it's a core memory, but it's also like, yeah, I mean, I've been dealing with PTSD my whole life. Like I've been through combat, and the stressors of like, they say they teach you to become a soldier, but they don't teach you to become a civilian again, right? Like,
yeah.
The amount of stress and impact it creates in your life to just go from hyper awareness in combat to, hey, I'm at home now with my kids or my friends at a bar, or just at home with my family. It's night and day, bro. Like it's a huge switch, and that affects a lot of people as it would.
Yeah.
And that's why you see a lot of veterans that come home and have a lot of issues, because it's a hard thing to transition to. And for me, like, yeah, I had a hard time transitioning for a long time, but I've done a lot of inner work. I've been through therapy in and out of my whole life. I've done the inner work to like figure out like who I am and my purpose, right? That doesn't come overnight, and that it's not easy. I mean, it takes a lot of work, man. And some people just haven't been able to step up to that yet. Just, it's hard, man. It's really hard. And I empathize with guys, and I empathize with men and women who have served, and they're still trying to figure out their purpose. I mean, it's there. Your purpose, you're here and you're home, and your purpose is there, but it takes some work to figure out what that is.
I can imagine it's a wild shift to just have your central nervous system go from constantly being like in this heightened sense of awareness.
It's hard, man. It's really hard for a lot of people, man. And suicide rate is really high, man. People dealing with PTSD and depression, and even their family members. You got guys who their wives, they don't even know who they are anymore. Like, this is not the same person I married, right? You hear stories about this all the time, and they don't even know who they are anymore, right? So what makes you think you know who he is? And I mean, it's hard, man. It's hard. You go through a super heavy traumatic experience to just coming home, and now you're sitting at the park. Like, it's just, that's it.
And you're supposed to just like switch off and just, hey, go back to normal.
Go back to normal.
All that shit that you just went through for the last 2-3 years, you know, like all that chaos. Hey, just forget that ever happened. Go back to normal.
That's it, man. That's it. So I think, you know, it's really important for men and women to do the work, man. And that's where you're going to be able to build that resilience. Is the resilience isn't overcoming like the things you went through in combat. The resilience is how you handle it afterwards and how you figure out like who you are again.
Have you found, I mean, this is probably a pretty stereotypical question. Have you found getting into martial arts, has that helped with that resilience and helped get through a lot of that?
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you already knew the answer to that.
I would imagine, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, martial arts is one of the best things that's ever come into my life, man. Again, and this goes into like what I was talking about with Muay Thai and the spirituality aspect of it. There's such a hard, like martial arts itself is more than just an athletic hobby, right? Mm-hmm. Like the core of martial arts stems from spirituality and being able to be a warrior and understanding how that spirituality can become such a powerful movement of growth for someone, right? And I love that aspect. And like even just as an athlete, I've grown in martial arts, but my spirituality has grown so much more with it as well. And being able to dig deeper into who I am and my purpose. Yeah, martial arts is great, man. It's one of the best things I could have ever asked for in my life. And it's definitely helped me just grow as a person, even growing from those traumatic experiences.
I was going to say, and you've taken a lot of that, and at least it seems to me with a lot of the stuff that you do for work and a lot of the, I mean, I don't know if it's, charity work or what you want to call it with going down and doing all the stuff that you do in Latin America. I mean, so you're an EMT for Grady. You know, run around, save people's lives.
Sometimes.
You know, take people to the hospital. However humble you want to be about that. And then go around and do the same thing in all of these other countries where you were saying that you get a bit of a twisted education on what their healthcare system is compared to the U.S.'s, like what you were saying about with Honduras and what that whole scenario is like with.
I mean, you know, that aspect, going back into it, that aspect of martial arts, as I said, like helped me grow as a person. And, you know, when you study martial arts, you know, it's not about the violence. It's about the growth of yourself. And growing for yourself is also being able to help others around you. I love being able to be there for the people, man. You know, within my borders and outside the borders. Like I love people. I love being able to be there for people. And that's how I got into EMS. You know, we can go down a deep rabbit hole of politics about what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. But like at the end of the day, like you had a lot of men and women who just wanted to help people and serve people, the community, right? Whether that community was here in the States or that community was in Iraq, right? And I wanted to continue that. I wanted to serve communities. And so, you know, I got into EMS and I just like being able to be there for people. And that's a part of the reason why I still travel and do international medic work. You know, I've worked on ambulances in Colombia, hospitals in Mexico, hospitals in Honduras. And just being able to be there for people helps build that character within myself, you know. And, you know, you can say some of that is from the military, some of that's from martial arts, and some of that's just from believing in something greater than yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's one hell of a way to give back. I mean, to people, again, to your point, like literally outside of the border that, I mean, I feel like the average person doesn't consider what's going on. And you were in Roatan? What was the name?
Well, in Honduras, I was in La Ceiba.
Okay.
But I mean, I think, you know, selfless service is one of the greatest services you can give in this life. You know, I believe in selfless service, and I think, you know, it's this paradox of like, selfless service is it for you or is it for others? I mean, you know, it's for others. It doesn't, like a kind deed done is still a kind deed done, right? So being able to have selfless service a part of your life, like it's great, man. I think it's just a great way to live, and it's a great perspective to have, to be able to be there for others and not just think about yourself, man. And I love what I do. So in so many ways, you know, it a little bit is for me.
Yeah.
Right. But I I like being able just to be there for people, man. It makes this life purposeful. And that's part of like that journey that I was talking about, transitioning from combat and military, and is having some kind of purpose. And for me, that purpose was for others.
What made you land? I mean, so going back to the whole like searching for purpose and everything after you get out of the military, what's that period like where you're sitting there trying to figure out? I mean, obviously you said it took a lot of, you know, you've gone to therapy, a lot of deep work, probably a lot of uncomfortable conversations with yourself, some really dark spots. And we talked about that a little bit before everything got rolling. But what was it that led you, or what was it that helped you land on, hey, look, I think I want to go into EMS work and I want to do this as a...
it was just my time. It was continuing my time from service in the Army, right? Like you know.
Were you a medic in the Army? I don't know.
No, I was infantry.
Okay.
Yeah, I was frontline, kicking indoors, driving Humvees. I was frontline. But it stemmed from my time in the service, in combat, and in the military. Is that, you know, there's a lot of messed up stuff in combat, man. It's bad. It sucks all the way around for everyone. Yeah. Like I'm a firm believer that there's no winners in war, man. Like it's bad.
Yeah.
But you have a purpose like that's bigger than yourself, and that's to serve the men and women around you, to serve your community back home, and to serve the community that, you know, of where you're working. Mm-hmm. And that's where the desire or the inspiration to like continue that service came from, is just going through combat and seeing some of the things that I saw is like, I don't want this world to be like this, right? I don't want to continue seeing kids struggle, or, I mean, you got kids who are playing soccer and tanks are driving by them like it's not like it's another day, right? I don't want kids to live in a world like that. It's going to happen, but I'm going to do the best I can to help those around me and try to make sure it doesn't. Will I succeed? No, but I'm going to do the best I can while I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the whole adage of like, if you want to change the world, you start with changing yourself. You change yourself,
absolutely.
And then you change your family, and then your neighborhood, and it all stems from there.
And that's why I said like that selfless service is also growth for you. Like you are changing yourself, but you're also changing the world for others. So, you know, it's a win-win, man.
I mean, is that something, what was the, I don't even know where to go with like because it's one thing, at least to me, it seems, obviously you get into the EMS work and you start, you know, obviously making an impact here, but then taking that abroad, I mean, like, because you've been all over the place, like you said, in Mexico, Colombia, Honduras, to Athens, Greece, you said, like working in those camps. I mean, it's to then go, I mean, like what we were talking about before, take all of that and then you go to Athens and you're sitting there working, and you said it was a refugee camp, people that have.
Yeah, I worked at a medical clinic at a refugee camp, and it was actually Thessaloniki, Greece, but yeah, outside of Athens.
I mean, that's got to be such like a mind-opening experience to sit there, and it's, I mean, you have all of the shit that you've gone through in your life, and just like all of the trials and all of that difficulty, and then you go over there and it's like, okay, there's these other people and these completely other separate parts of the world that are going through their own shit, that have seen their own horrific.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So
go.
Yes, actually working at the medical clinic at the refugee camp was one of my more powerful experiences, and I'll explain why. So I would say after I got out of the military, I was actually teaching English a lot, and I ended up working at this school in San Diego, and San Diego has a high refugee community, and at the time, there were a lot of kids from Iraq as part of this program.
Really?
And I started, like, I was teaching English, and as I got to like learn my students and connect with them, like I found out that some of these kids were the same kids that were like running around Iraq at the time that I was there, right? So it was like this huge like circle that comes complete of like, you know, I'm in Iraq, these kids were young kids playing in Iraq, and now we're both in the US and I'm here teaching them English. And it was like a profound moment of just like this circle coming complete of like, wow, like we were both people from two different worlds in this war zone, and now we're both here in this classroom, and I'm here teaching you English, and you want to better yourself, and I'm here to try to help you better yourself. And it was just a proud and profound moment of my life. Fast forward to working at the refugee camp in Greece. Same thing almost. A lot of these people are leaving war. They're leaving homes. They're leaving their countries that are war torn. And in so many ways, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was part of that. I was part of why some of these people are leaving. But now here I am at a medical clinic trying to help them with their wounds and listening to their stories. And all of this coming full circle is just like, life is crazy, man. And like, I think for me, working at the refugee camp was healing for me in so many ways as well, because, combat is rough, man. And I went through a lot and I saw a lot. And unfortunately, I did a lot. But that's not who I want to be unless I'm actually helping these people and being in this clinic, helping these people, hearing their stories. I empathize with them, and I want to be able to care for these people. And, there's so many different sides to war that it's complex.
Yeah, I think that's something that most people don't ever want to like talk about. They want to make it a very black or white thing, and it's
not,
like,
man, it's not black or white. Man. It's so deep and heavy and complex. And politics aside, like I said, a lot of people lose on both sides.
Do you get hit with that a lot, where people want to like sit there and try and like have?
I avoid those conversations.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can imagine.
Yeah, I try to avoid those conversations because I've seen it firsthand, and a lot of people, especially people who don't have never experienced it, like they're usually the loudest ones.
Yeah,
so I let people form their own opinions as they see fit, and if you ask me my opinion, I'll tell you, but I try to stay out of that kind of stuff, man.
I can imagine that's probably not something you're super eager to bring up. I know you said that always happens at in social settings. There's always someone.
Well, I mean, it depends on like the topic of conversation. Like, yeah, it's never a great way to like want to get to know me by walking up to me and being like, "Hey, how many people have you killed in Iraq?" And I'm like, "Yo, that's like," or even in EMS, people are like, "Yo, tell me the worst thing you've seen." I'm like, yeah, because that's something I totally want to talk about with somebody I've never met before.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mike. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. But like the topic of war and who's right, who's wrong.
Yeah, that's. I feel
it's
like that's
so complex that people forget that, man.
You're gonna set someone off. I mean, it's like that's one of those things people get real fired up about.
Yeah, but I'm not even worried about getting people fired up. It's more of just like that. Unfortunately, a lot of people are one-sided perspective, right? And they fail to see the other side, or they fail to see that it's not just black and white, man.
Yeah.
Like it's very complex and it's dark and it's sad on both sides. And I think people fail to realize that.
What is the
and there's a much higher play that's going on above all of us that people also forget when we start talking about like politicians and what they're doing behind closed doors. Like it's so deep and complex that it's never going to be just like, you're right, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
I'm trying to figure out how to you said it's oftentimes it's a one-sided perspective that people have here. Like, is there any, I don't even know how to go about like trying to ask this. Like, what is something, if you could take something and like show the other side, like to try, like if you had the opportunity and someone was like, hey, look, I actually do have like an open mind about this. Like if you could be like, hey, look, there are two sides to this. Would it be like those kids that you're sitting there talking about where it's like, I was over there at the same time these kids were 2 when I was 18. And now fast forward however long, it's like, these are people like, I don't even know.
We are all human, man. And we are all spiritual beings going through a human experience. And some of us drew a luckier card than others. And for the most part, you look at, I've heard stories and been called like bad names for things that we've done in Iraq, and maybe they're warranted, maybe not. But at the end of the day, I can tell you this, that there are more good people than there are bad. And even some of the hard things that you do in combat, at the end of the day, there are people who just want to make the world a little bit better, man. And they're doing the best they can to serve whatever community that they're working in, right? I guarantee you talk to any veteran, like, did they want to go over there and just fuck shit up on the surface? Maybe, because that's just how you have to carry yourself. But at the core, oh man, people cared. I mean, there's a price to pay with that. And there were some things that were done that you'll have to hold on to forever. But at the end of the day, people just want to do the best that they can for each other. You know what I mean? And also make sure that the people around them, the men and women on their left and their right, also come home safe too, man. It's complex, man. I'm telling you, like, there's no other way to really explain of how complex war is, because it's not just black or white, man. And it's not just right or wrong.
Yeah.
This side is right. This country is right. This country is wrong. It's deep, man. And there are things going on behind closed doors at a political level that you'll never know or never be able to comprehend on why things are being done. And that's why at the core of just being a good person or trying to help people, helping humanity, I think that's the win.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. That's like I don't know. I think it's something that
how are you feeling, like, as I explain that? What is it that's going through your mind?
I'm thinking about a whole hell of a lot. One,
sure.
I just can't even, like,
the human emotion that you're feeling. Like, what is it that, as I shared in some of these stories, or
it's just like powerful to sit here and like trying to like think through like the perspective that you have and like all of the history that you have over there, because I feel like I can't even start to wrap my head around it, because you've experienced the things that you have on such an intimate level. And it's like you've been dealing with the aftermath of that for 18 years now.
My whole life now, yeah.
I can't even begin to try and operate on that level of like, oh yeah, I can relate to being in an IED explosion. That is a foreign concept to me. The closest I've ever been to like being in that spot, my cousin flies A-10s flew A-10s for the Air Force. And so it's like me and him would have some conversations, and when he would talk to me about just some of the emotions that he would feel flying around and just like the different stuff that he saw, he was in Afghanistan. Like that's the closest I can, but it's like that is a completely different world to me, and I can't fathom operating off of that as like a baseline, I guess, if that's the best way to put it.
I think, like, with that being said, like, that's why I keep drawing my point back to, like, we are human and it's important to be there for each other.
Yeah.
Right? Like, some of us got luckier than others, simply just of where we were born.
Yeah.
Right? That's it, period. Like, look at the difference between some kid that grew up in Massachusetts, Boston, to some kid who grew up in the middle of Syria.
Yeah.
Like, they just drew a card. That's where they were born there. And then now they're suffering, and there's different types of suffering, and everybody suffers in their own way. And we all have our journey in this life, and we all go through things. But, at the end of the day, you have to remember that we are human, man. And humans deserve decency and respect. And sometimes there's a price to pay for that. And that's the ugly side of war. But at the same time, like, you have to, like, I look at it as doing the best I can for others while I'm here.
Yeah. I mean, like, the one thing that I keep like thinking back to is like you're saying, hey, look, I was just, most of the people that I was working with, they're just wanting to do better for themselves, wanting to do better for the community, serve, in their way.
And come home alive.
It's like, I feel like, I mean, like you said, that's like a unanimously human thing. Is like most people want to take care of themselves, and most people are willing to go through and do a lot of shit in order to better themselves.
Yeah.
You were talking about Guadalajara earlier. I met a guy in Guadalajara he had come across twice, and it's like the whole time he's sitting there talking about like all this risk he was taking and like just this hell that he went through. He almost died coming across. Came across illegally. Basically loaned all the money he could from his friends and family to come across here the first time because him and his wife were getting married. They needed a house. Second time they were having a kid.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't have enough money. Like I'm fucking poor. Like I got to do what I got to do. And it's like, he's sitting there and he's like, I'm a human. Like I'm going to come across here and I'm going to work and I'm going to make an honest living and I'm going to send the money back. But it's like, I'm willing to endure all this shit in order to try and make my family's life better. And it's that on a larger scale, on a hundreds of thousands of person scale.
With people. Like people forget that, like, that we're, like, everybody around you is going through something or has gone through something, and you just have to have that empathy for people and remember that, again, everybody has their own journey that they're going through, and some of it's tough, man.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone, and they were talking about the Mexican thing. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, basically they made some remark about like, oh well, it's just unbelievable that they would violate our laws like that and come across, and it's like, I think it is very, very easy on the human level when you're born into, the abundance that most of America has to lose the ability to try and put yourself into the shoes of other people. Absolutely. And go, oh, wait a second. What would I do if my wife was pregnant? I knew that we were fucked. We didn't have enough money.
Right.
Like, and all I got to do is I got to pay like 10 grand and I got to rough it through the desert for a few days and then do some manual labor. And I can make sure my wife and kid are going to, be relatively set up. Like, to me, that seems like a no-brainer. And to that person, I was like, if I was born down there, I'd do that shit in a heartbeat. Fuck the U.S., fuck the border. I'm coming to, like...
And then also think about that money. You said, like 10 grand, right? How many Americans, have just sitting around with 10 grand? Now imagine some poor human in Mexico. Where are they going to come up with 10 grand, right? Yeah. So, again, and this is also a conversation that's also complex, man. It's not black or white. Like, are there laws that need to be followed? Yeah, the society would fall apart without structure and laws, right? But also you have to empathize with people on a certain level. And I think that's where a lot of people misconstrue this idea of like things are black and white, right and wrong, because I think without empathy, we fail as a society. And I think society is also missing that, man. You have to empathize with people and just try to see where people are coming from, man.
I feel like the lack of empathy and the lack of acknowledgement that most of this stuff is gray is where a lot of stuff falls apart in this country. Because
absolutely. I mean, and I can understand because because it's hard to pinpoint something when it's in a gray area, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to say you're right, you're wrong if thing is gray. Some people try to push things to a black and white aspect so they can justify things. But I mean, human life is not like that. Life is not like that, and that's where the complexity of like combat comes from, man. Like, it's bad, but people try to do the best that they can with the positions they're put in.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I wish that a lot more people in this country had that.
Yeah,
not the understanding, but just like that ability to go, hey, look, maybe I don't need to be married. But we were talking a lot about identity earlier, and there's a large percentage of people in this country that they want to make their political beliefs like a core portion of their identity, and they attach themselves to those beliefs. And so then the inclination or like the idea that their political beliefs, like there might be some nuance to it or it might be a little bit different, turns into like a personal attack on them.
Absolutely.
And then they're like, no, like this is who I am. Like I am Mr. whatever, Mr. Right, Mr. Left, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. I mean, that nuance is complex in itself as well, right? But people want to feel like they're a part of something. We're a tribe-based, like ancestral lineage of wanting to be associated with certain things. But I think that's where the idea of like bettering yourself betters the world around you, and that's like the most that a lot of like. Can I change what's happening in Israel and Palestine right now? Just like me right now, maybe not. But at the same time, can I better myself to better other people? Can I do things that will help other people? Yeah, I can. And that will make a little bit of a difference. And that's what I'm pushing for. And that's what I want people to do is at the end of the day, you have to you have to check yourself on the inside. And that inner development is really what makes a better world around you. And seeing other perspectives and seeing that, not everybody has the same view because they come from different places.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things too, where it's a hell of a lot more difficult to actually go through and put in the work to try and make yourself better, your family better, community better.
Thing to do, man.
It's a hell of a lot easier to sit there and to post your Instagram story and to scream from the mountaintop about how this is right or this is right or whatever.
Absolutely. Than actually doing the work on the inside, man. Yeah. I mean, that's a dark journey in itself. Inner healing is heavy, man.
I was going to say, you talked about that a little bit with like how you got back into jiu-jitsu. Like you said, I mean, obviously you were going, like a lot was going on like during COVID. That's about the time you got it back into the EMS work.
Yeah.
Is that about, when did you get into the tactical shooting thing? Was that like a part of that progression? Because that's another thing. Like,
so
I don't know the timeline. Like, I just know that you do a whole bunch of wild, cool shit. I don't have any idea on like what the timeline, what led to what. Like,
I mean, like I said, I've always been a competitor and an athlete most of my life. I got into tactical games a couple years ago. I was actually introduced by a friend of mine. She was just like, hey, I think this is something you would be interested in. She showed me their webpage. And it was very humbling because tactical games, for those who don't know, is basically like a competition is CrossFit meets firearms.
Okay.
So you do a series of like exercises and then you have to shoot targets. So it's, you have to do fitness and firearms, right? It was humbling for me because I was like, oh, I first saw it and I was like, yo, this is awesome. I was like, I was in the military. I know how to shoot. I know how to handle weapons. I was like, and I'm also an athlete. I was like, I think I could do well in this. I'm doing well now. But at first it was just like humbling experience. Like I was coming in like 30th out of 50, like when I first started, because it's such an extreme as far as like, so shooting goes. There's a lot of aspects of being able to shoot. You're breathing, right? You just ran a mile, or you just did a whole bunch of sandbag carries, or you just did a whole bunch of power lifts, right? And now you have to shoot and your breathing's all off. Like being able to balance the two between exerting your level and then also being able to lower your heart rate and be calm so that you can shoot accurately. You could be really fast at the exercises, but if you're shooting awful, don't matter. You could be shooting on point, but if you're slow as hell, don't matter. You got to find that right balance. And it was super humbling for me. And I've been in it a couple years and I'm doing well now. I'm hoping to hit the podium this year. But you know, just competing in that, it was humbling experience in a good way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think as a competitor, you need that humbling experience. Even in jiu-jitsu, like I compete a lot now in jiu-jitsu, and even the loses are wins, right? Like there's always winning, even in the loss. And there's so much to be learned in a loss, and it's such a humbling experience. And how can I be a better athlete? How can I be a better person? How can I change my headspace and the way I talk to myself pre-fight nerves? And how can I be a better have better sportsmanship after a win or lose, right? There's so much to be learned in a loss, that like, how can I train better? How can I do things a little bit differently to make me a better athlete? Becoming a better athlete also grows as a better person. There's so much to be won in a loss, and I think having that humbling experience is nothing but growth.
Yeah, I know you. I remember. I think when we were at the range, you were saying like like you said, the first one you were like 30th out of 50, and then it was like you just kept iterating on it, iterating on it.
Yeah, so it was a progression. Like when I first started tactical games, like I was, you know, in each division there's about 50 competitors. There's like 200 competitors overall each competition, but in your division specifically, there's about 50 athletes. And then when I first started, I was like 35th, and then 30th, and then the next, and you learn a little bit more. You tweak a little bit of your gear. You change things on your belt. You change things on your rifle. You change things on your pistol, and then you tweak a little bit better, and you see where you're off. And then I progressed to like 28th, and then I was like 25th, and then I found myself at 20th, and the last few I was like 6th, 5th, 4th, and I was just. I haven't hit that podium
right
yet,
there,
man. But it's still, I mean, it's fun. I love it. Like at the end of the day, like I love being an athlete because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And I just grow as a person. But I like competing, man, and you know, pushing. I like pushing myself, and as I push myself, it helps. So.
I was gonna say you push yourself in a whole lot of fucking areas. 'Cause again, when we were sitting there talking, you were like, I'll say this, and if you want me to cut it, like whatever, we'll cut it after the fact. But you were like, when the end of the world comes, like I'm your fucking guy or something to that effect. You're like, I can shoot. I'm in good shape. I'm a fucking EMT. Like
I just like to be well prepared, man, for anything, man.
That's bad. I thought it was badass. I was like, that's sick.
I appreciate it. Nah, you can leave that in there. Nah, I just at the end of the day, it's about wanting to be the best version of myself, and this stems from combat. This stems from working in EMS and being there for others, to martial arts and competing as an athlete and growing internally, right? Each day I want to push myself to be the best possible version of myself that I can be. And that's what I strive for, man. And along with being the best version of myself also means being selfless for others. And that's just what it's about, man. For me, it's about being selfless and still pushing myself to be the best version of myself.
I think it's fucking admirable, dude. I mean, like, you are the only motherfucker I've ever met that's like, you know what I think I'm going to do for the next month? I'm going to go basically drive ambulances in the backcountry in Honduras or Colombia, or spend time in a refugee camp. And it's just like, hey, this is just my way of like giving back to the world.
Yeah, man.
Like, I don't know. I think it's wildly
I
admirable.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Like,
Thank you very much. I definitely appreciate it. And it's just part of my journey, especially it's part of my purpose, right? And that's what we were talking about, overcoming, you know, traumatic experiences like combat and finding that purpose. For me, I feel like that's my calling and my purpose, is again, to do the inner work to be the best version of myself so that I can be the best version for others.
Was the backpacking and going around, this is, kind of jumping all over the place, backpacking around Southeast Asia, like you said, you're at 50 some odd countries. Is that what like started you thinking about the purpose? Was that just like to get the fuck away from like everything that you had done from like 18 to 22, 23?
Well, I think obviously going through combat and being in Kuwait and being in Iraq, like that opened up my eyes to the world around me and the communities around me and how I can care for others just outside of my community. But backpacking, like obviously that set it off in a whole new way of seeing so many different cultures and so many different people and learning new languages and learning new ways of life and seeing how different parts of the world operate and understanding that even with all these differences, we're still one, right? We're still human, we're still spiritual beings having this human experience, and we're all going through these trials and tribulations. But at the point is like, we all deserve something better. We all deserve human decency. We all deserve rights, right? So yeah, backpacking obviously opened up my life to all sorts of corners of the world. But it was also just like more of a solid reminder of like being able to be there for people even outside of my community.
Yeah. I don't know. I know that like from just like the little bit that I've gotten to travel and just like the few conversations I've had with people that are out there, like it's always insane to me. It's like we are on the same planet at the same time, and then like relatively like the same like millisecond of time together, and it's like you get to go around and see like, okay, like everyone is going through their own shit, but also there's like all these struggles, all these things that are just like unanimously human. Like you have the same, not the same conversation, but you know what I'm saying, with like people that are in the refugee camp or people that are in Thailand or people that are in Cambodia, like wherever.
We're all human in the sense of like we have human emotions. Like we all experience sadness, we all experience disappointment, joy. Like these are all human experiences that everyone, for the most part on this planet, experience, right? So why not be able to connect with people in that aspect of just opening your mind to different perspectives and different ways of life and how we can communicate and be there for one another.
There's more motherfuckers on this planet that need to think in that in those terms.
There's 8 billion people in the world, man. And this is not. And again, like these perspectives and ideas that I'm talking about now. I didn't collect this overnight. Like this is years of also doing work and experiencing people and experiencing communities and doing that inner work and understanding. Like when you do that inner work, you're able to step outside yourself, right? So, being able to step outside myself and just open my mind to different parts of the world and different people gave me the ability to also be there for those people.
Yeah. What's been the most, in terms of like all the competitive things that you do, obviously the shooting, boxing, jiu-jitsu, like in your opinion, what are the carryovers that you see between those in terms of like mentality, preparation, that kind of thing? Reason I'm asking, so when Greg and I were talking, I can't remember if this was while we were on the podcast or prior, we were saying something essentially the effect of like getting good at something is a skill in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, what carryover do you see between, hell, even just getting better at Spanish, because you speak Spanish at a pretty high level.
Yeah.
Like you did a whole ass interview in Honduras on the Honduran news in Spanish.
Yeah. That's wild to me too. So yeah, but I'm listening.
But like, yeah, if you want to run with that, run with that. I thought it was cool as hell.
What carries over? I think they all fall under the same umbrella of like being an athlete, right? What was it that you said the skill is? What is a skill in itself? Like
Greg and I were saying that basically getting good at something is a skill in and of itself. It's like you figure out like in all of these things, like you were talking about with the tactical games. It's like, okay, I figure out, I get 35th and I figure out, okay, well I was a little too, quick here. Right. Okay, I took too long.
Slow down my breathing here. Do this.
Take an extra 5 seconds here. Like
I think it all, like I said, it's an umbrella as far as it all falls under the same thing of like becoming a better version of yourself, right? So the way my headspace for a boxing match was not exactly the same as I prepare for a jiu-jitsu match, but very similar, right? Like I still prepare in so many different ways. And I think that is a great way to say it, is that like getting good at something is a skill in itself, but that can carry over to almost anything you do in life. Your daily habits and the small things you do is a huge reflection of your overall life. I wish more people understood that. And the small things that you do create a much bigger impact in your daily world. So, you know, getting good at tactical games is also a version of myself of being a better person and waking up at a certain time. Getting good at jiu-jitsu is also a better version of myself in how I treat people and my sportsmanship. And my sportsmanship is a way that I just respect people, whether they're my opponent or my neighbor, right? And there's so many different aspects that all collectively is just getting good at something is a skill in itself, because those overall habits create the bigger version of yourself. So they all carry over. Everything that you do, whether it's tactical games, jiu-jitsu, boxing, to art, to your career, the way you carry yourself in all these aspects is an overall reflection of yourself, and they all carry over into each other. Yeah. So yeah, it's the headspace that you put yourself in. I mean, as far as competing goes, like, yeah, being an athlete, like there's always a level of competition that, a headspace that you have to put yourself in for a level of competing and competition. But that's what also helps you grow as a person.
You're pretty big into meditation. I mean, you've got the Warrior Garden that I think is interesting in and of itself. But what, in terms of the meditation, has that been, I mean, that's obviously one of the things that's made a pretty positive impact in your life from
meditation,
everything. But like, what are the other like little small, because you were saying, okay, you know, the small daily habits are kind of like what build up to make something far larger. I mean,
this is funny because obviously what works for me doesn't work for everyone, and you have to find those things for you. But I think as a whole, obviously meditation is a big part of my life. Being able just to sit with myself for 5-10 minutes and disconnect from the world around me helps me connect better with the world around me, right? So that, you know, I have meditation, but there are daily habits that you can do in your life that just overall create a healthier impact. For me, you know, one of the things I do, like I make my bed every morning, first thing when I get up. That's a win. I've already started the day with a win. And it can sound so cliche, and I know people have said it before, but it's true. Like I wake up, I make the bed, I've already started my day with a win. And there's just like little habits that you can go throughout your life that fit your lifestyle that just overall create a better impact for you and the world around you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. I do not make my bed, like, ever.
And that's why I said, like, you know, like that's what fits for me.
Yeah.
I don't like to go around and tell people, hey, this is how you should win the day. Like, you know, like you win how you feel is best for you. But you know, I don't have to tell you. You know if you're winning or not. You know if your habits are helping or hurting you. You know that. I don't need to tell you how to live your life. I can give you advice, or I can tell you what I do. I can give you some opinions. Doctors can tell you what they do. Psychiatrists can tell you what to do. But at the end of the day, internally, Deep down, people know about their lives, and they know what's hurting or helping them. And I've just slowly grown to live my life in a way that's like, if it's not helping me, like I don't really want it to be a part of my life. Like I've stopped drinking, right? And that's
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, I knew that was coming, so I'd beat you to it. So we'll talk about that for a second. I was a hard drinker. I've been a drinker all my life, right? Like especially after the military. Like I drank. Like I lost my dad a few years ago to suicide, and when that happened, like my drinking I tanked hard. And this was also, we were also kind of talking about how COVID hit people differently. That was one of the things.
Holy shit.
So it was, that period of my life was really heavy, and I found myself like drinking a lot. And I was able to come up, like bring myself up out of it, and you know, I was able to like have a grip on myself and like, only drink like socially, and that was cool. But I remember about a year and a half ago, like I went out with my cousins one night. We had some drinks. I mean, nothing bad happened. If there was ever a night to drink, like this was it. It was, you know, a nice family night. We were having drinks. But I woke up the next day, and it was like, I can't explain how much of an epiphany it was. I just knew that this isn't it for me. Like I don't want to live my life feeling hungover like this. It's not helping me be a better athlete. Like I want to be a part of things that make that the better version of myself, right? And just for me, like I love when people are having drinks around me. I still go to the bar and sit at the bar. I won't have a drink, but I can still be social and sit at the bar, right? I can still have fun, which I never thought was possible like back in the day. But yeah, I can still have fun, and I can still be social without having to have alcohol in my life, because it doesn't fit my lifestyle anymore. And that's okay. Like it's nothing against anyone who does. You have to do what's best for you. But again, you know if it's good for you or not. You know if it's hindering you or not. Deep down, you know these things, right? And it's up to you to make that change. No one can help you. No one can convince you enough to make a change until you convince yourself, right? So yeah, man, like I do little daily things that that just help create a better version of myself each day. And that's what I strive to do. Like, I mean, we all want to be like the top versions of ourselves. Will we ever achieve it? No, but to do those daily habits and make those small changes, I mean, bettering yourself betters the world around you, right? As we discussed. So, just doing little changes within my life, it helps me feel more successful.
Have you gotten a different perspective on things like since you've gone sober, in terms of like going out and just like getting to see things differently? Reason I ask, I had a friend of mine that's sober, and we went out, we were in Miami for this work thing, and a group of us went to this bar afterwards, and we like went up to the bar and we sat there and we were all ordering, and he's sober. So he's like, okay, I'll just have, do you have any non-alcoholic beer? And this guy, so he's Dutch. And so they have a bit of a different, like, understand. This is my ignorance. I think they have like some beers that are like 1%. They're not 0, but they're 1%. He's like, okay, I'll have a 1%, like whatever. Yeah. And the guy like looks at him. He's like, closest I've got for you is a Bud Light. And he was being completely serious. And this guy's like asked for a non-alcoholic beer. And my buddy looks at me and he's like, is that not like 0% or whatever? And like in that moment, I'm sitting here, I was like, Jesus Christ, like our culture is so like alcohol centric, where it was like the bartender just like without skipping a beat was like, yeah, I'll just give you a Bud Light. When like this guy, like, again, my experience, if you're sitting there asking for a non-alcoholic beer,
you don't want it.
You know what's up. Like, that guy's trying to stay away from booze, and he was just sitting there. And I've seen that happen one other time too with this girl that I used to date, where it was like, she was like, I mean, she's not sober, but she was like, yeah, I'll just have like a non-alcoholic beer. And this lady like sat there, or I can't remember. She was telling us a story, and that's what it was. The bartender was telling us this story about someone that had asked for a non-alcoholic beer. And she was like, I just don't understand why they don't just have a beer. And I'm sitting there and I was like, this is so backwards to me.
I'm glad you brought that up, because yeah, you're absolutely right. Our society is so ingrained into alcohol culture that if you don't drink, people think there's a problem versus if you do, right? So this idea that like people think if you don't have, I mean, let's call it what it is. Like alcohol is poison. Like it's a poison.
That's what gets you drunk.
Right. It's a poison, right? That if you don't partake in this poison, what's wrong with you? How come you're not drinking? What's going on in your life?
People take it personally that you're not drinking.
You're not drinking, right? Alcohol is probably the only drug in our society that if you don't do, people think there's something wrong with you. If I told you I don't do coke, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's good.
No,
if I told you I don't do meth, you'd be like, well, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
If I told you I don't drink alcohol, why not?
So you got a problem.
You have a problem.
Oh, so it was bad. Like even they start getting weird about it.
Even the terminology we use, like sober, that's fine. But I choose alcohol free because, right, like I'm just alcohol free. Like I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, like I have a problem. I go through AA, which some people do. That's good. I want them to like be the best versions of themselves. But for me, I just wanted to separate myself from alcohol because it didn't fit the best version of myself, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like we come from a society that's so ingrained into alcohol that, if you don't drink, there's something wrong with you.
Why? What's wrong with you? I think a lot of it is like a lot of people don't like that the mirror gets turned back around on them when they meet someone that makes that choice.
This is again, internally, like if this is working for you or not. Again, what I put into my body is only going to affect me, right? So, and I look at it the same way. Like I don't have I want people to enjoy themselves. Like if you want to have a beer, I'll open it for you and I'll hand it to you. But you can't expect me to consume in it because it just doesn't fit for me, and that's okay. And these are like things that I've learned, going into an alcohol-free lifestyle. And I actually thought like switching over to an alcohol-free lifestyle that, I was going to have the biggest FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
That was one of my biggest fears of like not drinking. And it turns out like in a year and a half, I think maybe there was once, maybe twice where I was like, damn, I would like to have a drink with my peers right now. Like twice in a year and a half. Oh man, I've traveled. I thought traveling was going to be so hard. Like I want to go to these countries and experience their alcohol. Man, honestly, I went to Thailand and that was one of my best trips I've ever had. You know what I mean? Like the fear isn't there anymore. Like it's, of course you make conscious decisions in your life, and that's part of like discipline. It's part of like, the version of yourself that you want to be. But, for me, it just doesn't, I love being an athlete. Yeah. I've never missed the gym because I drank the night before and I feel like shit, right?
You just feel like shit in the gym.
That happens. But I like this version of myself of like really pushing myself and being a competitor, competing in tactical games, being in jiu-jitsu tournaments and doing the best that I can and growing from those experiences, win or lose, fighting, everything that I do is I just love pushing myself.
I was going to say, you just like the competition.
I like it because I just grow every class I do in Odyssey, like I've literally driven home from Odyssey, and I know you can connect with this. Like I've literally driven home like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
I suck. The sport sucks. I hate it. I'm the worst. I'm getting my ass kicked every time I come here. And I'd be damned if I don't show up again the next day.
And then the next fucking day, you're sitting there.
And then there are some days where I drive home, I'm like, I love this shit. I did good today. I learned. Fucking my coaches are the shit. My teammates are the shit. I love this.
Yeah.
And then there are some days where I'm like, I hate this.
You sit in the car and you just like reevaluate everything you're doing with your life.
You evaluate everything, but that's part of the growth, man. And that's what makes it a beautiful experience, is like having those drastic emotions and stuff like that. I love jiu-jitsu. I love competing, and I love being an athlete. And I just want to continue doing things that push myself in that avenue.
I think this is kind of jumping all over the place. I like the framing that you said. You're like, I don't like sober, I like alcohol free.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of people are just not. And again, you mentioned something about being conscientious with like how you, one, just like the choices that you make in your life, but like how you frame the things that you do. I think that shit matters, because there's so many people where it's like they just subconsciously like apply these labels to themselves or whatever. And it's like, instead of being intentional, like, you know what, I like this, framing for like whatever, what's the reason you prefer alcohol free to saying sober?
At the end of the day, I don't, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. But for me, when I use this terminology, I think in some aspects, sober gives off like a negative impression. Like I'm sober because I have a problem.
Okay.
And I never felt like I have a problem. I felt like there were times in my life, especially when I was going through dark periods, that I was dependent on wanting to be numb. Yeah. And I think that's where it stems from. Like I think back to all the times where I really was like drinking hard. It was because I wanted to numb my feelings, right? And this is part of the inner work. Like now I look in, like there are times where I look back, like if I had a hard day where I'd be like, man, I need a drink. Now it's like, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling this? I sit with these emotions, right? Before, I didn't want to feel emotions. I was in combat. I've gone through some heavy stuff in my life. I don't want to feel these things. I want to be numb. Yeah, I want to numb my stuff. Bottle of whiskey, right? When my father passed away, I did not want to think about shit. I just wanted that shit to be gone. And it's not the idea of like I want to drink and be social about it. It's like I just want to numb these feelings because I don't want to face them. For me now, it's more about understanding how to sit with those emotions and grow, right? So for me, it was never like I have a problem. My life is going down the drain. I'm losing my job. I'm losing my wife. Like whatever. For me, that those were never aspects. It was just more about wanting to be a better version of myself. So like, I don't know. For me, I just felt like sober had a more negative context, and it gives off the impression that like I had a problem.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that. It was just like I just I just want to be a part of things that align with who I want to be.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's plenty of people that make those decisions, and then you definitely feel like people look at you like a little bit different or whatever. Again, it's like a cultural thing.
Yeah, it's a cultural thing. It's terminology. It's the way our society approaches alcohol culture and drinking culture. Like, you know, it's minute, but like, you know, it just works for me. I like it's. I'm glad you brought the intention aspect of it. Like, and that's also goes into everything that I've discussed today. It's the intention behind things, right? It's your intention. You know, a good deed is still a good deed, but it's the intention on why you're doing it. Are you doing it because you want social media likes? Are you doing it because you want attention? Or are you doing a good deed because you genuinely care about other people? The intention behind things. Are you competing because you want to stroke your ego? Are you competing because if you don't win, you're going to be pissed off? Are you competing because you want to grow as an athlete, as a martial artist, or because you want to study the art? The intention behind things, the intention in what you do. And this goes into the daily habits as well. Like your intentions behind when you wake up and the things you do, those intentions create the version of yourself. And only you know whether you're doing things that have intention or are growing or becoming a better version of yourself. Only you know those things.
I think it's really interesting, like you're saying, like sitting there and thinking with them, because like obviously that was, like you were saying, a lot of what drove you into jiu-jitsu and stuff like that was like COVID. And I feel like COVID, like when a lot of people were forced to take a step back and sit with a lot of that stuff, just because a lot of the options weren't afforded to them.
Yeah, I you know, COVID hit everybody. COVID hit the whole world, and we all have our aspects of how it affected us differently. But COVID or not, like I think being able to sit with yourself, part of the meditation, being able to sit with your emotions, not numbing yourself from alcohol, sitting and just understanding your human emotion will also develop you as a person.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be alcohol, dude. I was numbing myself with weed.
Yeah, weed too, man. Even weed. Like, let's talk weed. Like, oh, man, I was a big weed head my whole life. I've been smoking since I was 15 years old. It's only been a few years that I was like, no, it's not really aligning with myself. I don't have a problem with it. I love when people smoke weed. Weed is one of the best things that was socially like accepted into our society, right?
Yeah.
From when I was a teenager to now. It's
huge. Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so like, yeah, I love to see where like weed culture has gone, right? But people like, you know, if you're using weed to numb your feelings or you're using weed just to relax at the end of the day, right? Like, you know these things. So, yeah, I mean, anything, weed, things can be abused. Things can be used for their outside purpose, right? Let's look at shrooms.
Yeah.
Psilocybin, man, like, I've had some very spiritual trips on psilocybin. And
white girl and you coming out.
Yeah, I've had some spiritual trips, man, like to where like, but I did it with intention, right? So even mushrooms, like, can they be abused? And you use them at like a rave and a party, and then you're just on this weird trip, and it's like, you know, yeah, I mean, that may be cool for you, but like, I think your intention behind things will say a lot. You can do two things. You can do something for whatever reason, and then you can do something with intention, and I guarantee you, with the intention, it'll be a lot stronger. You get a lot more out of it. Dude,
a lot of what got me away from smoking as much weed as I was for a period of my life was psilocybin.
Yeah, man.
Because I don't know what it was, but it was like, sitting there, and I guess it comes back to what you were saying, sitting there and being like forced to examine your habits of like,
absolutely,
why do I do this? What am I getting out of this? Is this really a positive? Because for a long time, for me at least, it was like, oh yeah, like I would get home from training and I'd smoke. And it was like, okay, like I would sit there and you have the endorphins from training, and so you feel good and your muscles are sore, you smoke, whatever. And then it just got to a point where I was like, wait a second, I don't think this is me relaxing from training. I'm doing this like 4 or 5 nights a week. Like this is probably,
all the time.
I was like, and honestly, part of what made me make that switch is I was like, if this was alcohol, I'd be a fucking alcoholic. I was like, this is not.
Yeah.
And
but you figured that out because you knew deep down inside.
Yeah.
Like you did some internal examination of
you
like,
sit there and look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, wait a second, I don't think I'm doing this the right way.
Exactly. I think the intention behind anything you do in life, from your daily habits to martial arts to your experimental drug use to whatever you do in life, your intention behind it goes a long way.
There's a lot of stuff that I've seen with psilocybin and I think with ketamine with regards to PTSD.
We have ketamine on the ambulance.
Yeah.
Yeah. We use it very carefully. But yeah.
Yeah.
And we pick and choose who gets ketamine, because if you have a psych patient who's already hallucinating, like we don't really want to give them ketamine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've heard great things. I know people who have done some ketamine doses and have had some healing experiences.
I think it's good that at least people are like opening their mind to the fact that there is medical benefit from a lot of this stuff.
That's
that can
a whole nother conversation of just like
we got time.
The medical industry and
yeah,
drugs and pharmaceutical industry is.
It's a hell of a lot more profitable to have people on SSRIs and antidepressants than it is to have them figure out what's causing it.
It's the age-old saying of just like a healed patient is not a returning customer.
Yeah,
and I that's one thing that I've hated about working in healthcare is the amount of like pharmaceuticals and medications that are just given to people.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that aspect, which is why I also like being in pre-hospital care, because it's not my job to diagnose you and medicate you. So I like that. I'm here to help you in this moment right now, do the best I can to help you, save your life. And then, I'll let you deal with the devil at the hospital.
Yeah. I mean, you see it in everything. I mean, no one gets paid if you heal your shit on your own. And
that's what I'm saying. Like a non-healed patient is a returning customer, man. And that's the truth. And I again, I'll reiterate it. I hate that side of our medical industry, and especially American pharmaceuticals. You don't see this as much in other countries. So
I was talking with some of my friends from the Netherlands that I've like worked with, and they were saying that it was like shocking to them the level of drugs you can just get over the counter. So like one of my buddy Yella, he was here. We were in Miami for this thing, and he actually cut that. Don't say his name. Now that I think about that, Yella, as I say it again, he went to just like a 24-hour Walgreens, and because he had, I can't remember if he had the flu or what it was, but he was just like feeling run down. And I was like, dude, go get this from the pharmacy. He was like, I don't need a prescription. I was like, the fuck you mean you need a prescription? And it was like Sudafed or something to that effect. And he was basically got it, felt way better. He's like, I can't believe this stuff's just available over the counter. I was like, yeah, dude, we've got.
But also the pricing.
Once you get into the whole, yeah.
I'm telling you, that's a whole nother devil, man. Pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, I think that there's again, one of the things that from the people that I know from the Netherlands that they've said is like quite shocking. That also how much money gets blown on advertisements on TV.
Well, yeah,
and for pharmaceutical drugs, it's like I cannot fathom walking into a doctor's office and like recommending my doctor, because it's always like ask your doctor about whatever. I was like, I can't fathom walking in there and be like, hey doc, how about you give me this thing that I saw on the TV? And then they sit there and they rattle off all the side effects at the end. It's like side effects include suicidal thoughts. You're like, hold on, that's number one.
Sometimes the side effects are worse than the actual symptom that you're experiencing.
Is this going off again? Oh, I guess I'm doing a strobe.
Yeah, but I'm happy to see that also. Yeah, that our society's like shifting in that aspect of like understanding therapeutic drug use as far as psilocybin and weed and things like that. So, the healing is there.
Yeah,
the healing properties are there.
I went down like a bit of a rabbit hole. Part of the reason I was asking about the PTSD stuff earlier, I went down a bit of a rabbit hole listening to some people talk about like obviously like the benefits of like using the psilocybin, and also just like the differences between, at least in, I can't remember if this was a study or if this was someone just like their like little pet theory. They were saying the difference in PTSD between conventional and like special operations forces. They were saying that apparently the rates of PTSD are higher in conventional forces, like people that are like Army infantry, because it's so much of it is like what you said. You wound up in a firefight where it was like a reactionary thing. It was like boom, IED goes off, y'all are getting shot at, whatever. I have no idea if that's like a thing or not. It's just
interesting. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know. It's not an aspect that I've studied about PTSD. I can say from my experience, PTSD is not limited to war combat, though. I think a lot of people also forget that, though. People can experience PTSD from an infinite amount of things, right?
Yeah.
And it's not linear to just combat or military. It's associated with military because you hear it. It's most commonly associated with war. But, people of all types, in all environments and all experiences can experience PTSD. I can't say whether, I don't know. I almost don't even like the idea of like trying to figure out if this PTSD is worse than this PTSD or whatever, because
I think they're just saying like the frequency of it or like the number of reported cases. I don't know.
it's possible. I mean, you know, I can assure you that majority of people who experience combat will come home with PTSD, right? But I think everybody's experience is different, and that's what also makes it complex. Is that so you can have two guys in the same unit, in the same squad, in the same Humvee, go through the same experiences, and then come home and have two completely different perspectives, or have two different. One may have PTSD and one may not. I mean, the world hits everybody differently, and there's so many variables to how things affect humans that it's too complex to say. So,
Yeah.
you know, PTSD, man, that in itself is also complex and how it affects people. But you know, overcoming it and pushing through it is definitely an internal journey for sure. I mean, there are things there are outside things that can help. I mean, whether it's therapy, whether it's finding purpose, whether it's traveling, whether it's psilocybin, you know, there's definitely things that can assist you on your journey. But at the end of the day, it's going to be internal.
I don't know. That's back to the whole thing. Well, like I don't even know how to begin to try and relate to that because like I've gone through nothing in my life that I think could even.
I wouldn't say that either, man. You have your own experiences, and I'm sure you've gone through things that some people may. I'm sure you have gone through things that may be hard for somebody to go through, or some people may look at it and be like, oh. But it's up to you. I mean, this is your life, man. This is your journey, man, and how you maneuver through it and grow from it is going to be up to you. But I wouldn't say like, you know, I can understand the aspect of like not being able to even comprehend some of the things that like other soldiers have gone through, but you have your own journey too, man, and that's powerful in itself.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I don't know. I just am trying to like wrap my brain around everything that you've been saying.
I mean, but like, I could say the same thing about a lot of people, or, you know, there's stories I've heard. I'm like, whoa, I don't have no idea how that person endured that. But, you know, we all go through trials and tribulations, man. We're all having different experiences in this life.
What do you think is next for you? Keep doing jiu-jitsu, keep doing tactical games.
At first, I thought you were talking about life. I'm like, what do you think's next after life? I'm like, shit, I don't know.
Well, that too. We can go there if you want.
Nah, for me, it's just constantly growing, constantly pushing myself to be the best version of myself, whatever that may look like next year. Jiu-jitsu for sure, man. I'm climbing. I love learning. I love studying the martial arts. I love being at Team Odyssey. I love growing in this academy. I still have Muay Thai at my heart. You know, we'll see if I take a fight in the near future. I'm putting it out there, so we'll see, man. I just like pushing myself as an athlete, as a competitor, as someone who studies martial arts. I love my career in EMS, and I just love pushing myself as a person.
What attracted you to Odyssey? You said you took one class at Odyssey, and then you were like, all right, I think this is the spot.
That's good. Yeah, so, all right. So starting from the beginning a little bit. So my first introduction into jiu-jitsu was the military when we studied hand-to-hand combat. There was the basics of jiu-jitsu. And then, of course, I dabbled into boxing and Muay Thai and then started studying martial arts. But then I knew that like I wanted to transition to a new aspect of martial arts, and that was jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. I studied at a few different academies, just dabbling here and there, trying different classes. But it was when I got to Odyssey after my first class, I knew for sure that the Academy of Odyssey was where I wanted to be. I love the structure. I love the coaches. I love the way they teach. I love how it's very technical, but still open in the aspect of you learn the basics, you learn technique, and then you can apply them. Mm-hmm. And I love being able to grow in that aspect. And then, of course, it's just the community. I mean, the community is one of the biggest aspects. The community of Team Odyssey is warm and welcoming, and at the same time competitive. Oh my God, I love competing with all my teammates at Team Odyssey, and I grow as an athlete and as a person at Team Odyssey, and that's how I knew that that's where I wanted to grow in martial arts and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's a cool spot, man. I told Greg that when we were like talking. I was like, I don't know. I feel throw the fucking O off. It was cool as hell. I mean, went 5-0 at the thing at the fight to win thing the other night.
It's been from the coaching to teammates and everything in between, man. Like it's overall just a stand-up academy, and they know it. Team Odyssey knows it. I mean, most academies in the country know Team O as far as like being a stand-up academy, and there's just so much growth to be had at the gym that, you know, from the coaching to the teammates, there's a lot of love in between, man.
I think it's awesome. I just think, I mean, it's got to be so difficult to build like a culture around, because like what you were saying, it's a stand-up gym. You have a lot of people that, I mean, there's plenty of people in jiu-jitsu that, you know, I'm sure there's the same thing in boxing or Muay Thai or whatever, where it's like they're just looking for an opportunity to like whoop up on whoever the fuck they can.
Yeah, but that's ego.
Yeah, exactly. But there's plenty of schools, I would imagine, that have a lot of that's like running around the room. Versus,
but that's also one of the things I appreciate about Team Odyssey is like you don't see a ego in there, right? The ego is disconnected from the artist, from the student, right? And Team Odyssey has a platform that allows that because they teach in such a way, and the community is so strong that there's no room for ego in that, right?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting place in terms of everyone keeping their egos in check, and also, I don't know, everyone's very eager to help everyone else in the room grow.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's part of the community aspect of it. Like everyone that I've ever rolled with, like there's such a level of respect for it, right? I mean, we're just training, right? But the respect is there. And again, that stems from having a strong community, and Odyssey has that. It's
got a strong fiber behind it, it seems like.
Yeah.
But so last thing I want to ask you about before we get out of here, we've been in here for a hot minute.
Let's do it.
So the Warrior Garden thing.
Yeah, Warrior in a Garden, man.
Warrior in a Garden.
Yeah, Warrior in a Garden is just, so, you know, between doing martial arts, Muay Thai, boxing, even tactical games, Jiu-Jitsu, I wanted a company that just kind of represented who I was as a person, as I compete and as I grow as an athlete. And Warrior Garden Fit, man, you know, we have a clothing, but it's more of a philosophy of like, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in war. And that aspect of just being prepared and not just training yourself physically, but also training yourself mentally and spiritually. And that sit with who I am as a person. And that's how I wanted to represent myself as an athlete, as someone who studies martial arts, and as a competitor, and as someone in life.
I think it's awesome, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, dude.
I think it's a cool ass message. What was like how long you had the company for? Like how long?
I mean, it's small. It's just it's a slow startup. It's just something that I do outside of everything else that I do. You know what I mean?
Because you don't have enough going on.
Exactly. So you know, it's just something that I wanted to represent myself. You know, about a year and a half now, almost 2 years. But you know, it really just turned into something. It really just turned into something that I wanted to represent myself, but people gravitated towards that message. So, you know, like we have t-shirts and clothing and apparel and stuff like that, but that's not what it's about. The apparel is just a side part of it. It's the message behind it. It's about understanding that being a warrior is not the violent aspect. Being a warrior is being able to control that aspect and only using it when necessary, and then being mentally and spiritually strong as well as being physically.
I think there's more people that need to have your approach to a lot of things in life, but instead of just sitting there and wanting to be like a brute and be like, yeah, I'm a fucking warrior, like all that.
Yeah, because that's not what a warrior is. That's not what a warrior is, man. The warrior is the one who can be violent but knows how to control it and only when to use it.
You're a bad motherfucker, sir.
I try, man. I try.
I appreciate you. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
it's
man.
Fun as hell.
Nah, it's always a pleasure, dude. I'm honored, and I'm really honored, and I'm grateful to just have these discussions, especially with badass people like yourself.
I am not anywhere close to a badass compared
to you,
sir.
We're sitting at the same table, bro.
Yeah, well, one of us could kill the other in a handful of ways, and then the other one's me. So